kitties. Trying on something a little different this week. It's just pictures. Kind of strung out a little bit, but didn't want to leave you hanging without something. And it was explained to me that just typing them up is just not as interesting. So here we are. This week we're going to be looking at detective plus genres movies. These are some of my favorite detective movies that offer a bit more than your stereotypical film noir. These are films that follow more than enough detective story tropes to qualify them as, good Pulp Fiction, but also have enough extra going on that one wouldn't immediately categorize them as detective movies. But they are. Trust me. Our menu includes The Long Goodbye, Lord of Illusions, and The Big Lebowski. Robert Altman's adaptation of the classic Raymond Chandler novel doesn't really play like a detective movie. It plays like it's a Robert Altman movie, so that doesn't play like anything with a classical plot structure. Robert Altman movies only ever look like Robert Altman movies. The Long Goodbye, like everything else he's done, is a series of episodes and vignettes in which our main characters interact, and from there, if the audience is paying close attention, we get the plot. If there is one. There have been a few movies where there isn't actually a plot. This works well with Altman's earlier films like MASH, but it plays oddly with a classic detective story like a Raymond Chandler novel. It's more of an existential crisis wearing gumshoes, fedora, and trench coat. Altman regular Elliot Gould plays Philip Marlowe as he wanders almost aimlessly, trying to figure out why his friend Terry ended up dead in Mexico, whether or not Terry killed his wife, how Roger and Eileen Wade fit into the mess, and how to get scary mob boss Marty Augustine off his back. It's a good thing he's got an endless supply of cigarettes. I'm not joking. Marlowe lights up in every single scene. It's pretty much his trademark. The only scene he doesn't light a cigarette is the one where he kills somebody. So, it's either kill somebody else or kill himself with cigarettes. So, the film warrants repeated viewings, but I promise you there is a detective story there. And in its own way, it's very faithful to the book. However, you have to look past Altman's improvisational style, but it's worth it. I identify a lot with Gould's Marlowe, a little too much in this movie, but you gotta like the look that he's got with the American flag, the skinny American flag tie, and the mismatched clothes. He actually looks like a proto Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. But in addition to Elliot Gould, Elliot Goulding the hell out of it, you got great performances by the always great Sterling Hayden. Nina Van Plant plays the femme fatale in her first English-speaking role, I believe. And Mark Rydell plays the scary mob boss Marty Augustine. This kind of harkens back to an earlier triple feature I did where you had directors playing bad guys in other people's movies, more than just little cameos. And if that's all not enough for you, there's, also Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is in the background of one of the scenes in this movie, and all he really does is flex and look badass. It's pretty funny. Also of note, the song in the background of the trailer, The Long Goodbye, that's written by John Williams. Yep, that John Williams. And he wrote it for the film, and with the exception of Hooray for Hollywood, there's no other music in the movie. It's all variations on this song, The Long Goodbye. And they come up with a bunch of clever ones. It's a torch song, it's a blues song, it's a ballad, it's a folk song. It's even a funeral dirge at one point, and more ridiculously, the doorbell music to the Wade's house. So you could almost make a drinking game out of this, where take a drink every time you hear a new genre for The Long Goodbye. Next up, we have Lord of Illusions, and if you follow this vlog, you know that I will put Lord of Illusions just about any triple feature I can because it's just, I think it's an incredible film. It's Clive Barker's last directorial outing to date. I hope, I keep my fingers crossed that he'll get back into it. He's adapting his short story, The Last Illusion, rather, from it was published in the Books of Blood, Volume 6, in England and Europe, but was published in Cabal, which became Nightbreed, that collection of stories in America. He expanded on the premise and his recurring occult detective character, Harry D'Amour. Harry appears in The Last Illusion and then The Great and Secret Show and Everville. And what's fun is that this movie is pretty perfectly balanced, equal parts detective story and gruesome horror movie. A lot of people get hung up on the horror since there's a lot of gore and a lot of monster spookiness and not a hell of a lot of mystery since we see the inciting atrocity at the beginning of the film and know why everybody's ending up the way they end up. But if you look at this movie, remember the old Peter Falk show Columbo? Every episode of Columbo begins with the murderer committing the murder. And the excitement from the detective story comes from trying to see what clue, what detail the murderer overlooked that is going to allow Lieutenant Columbo to figure it out and nab the guy. This sort of works that way where we're trying to watch Harry. We want to see if Harry can figure out what happened and how to stop what's going to happen in time. And I think it's pretty exciting. Harry is played by the always delightful Scott Bakula. And why we love Scott Bakula, aside from Quantum Leap and you Enterprise people, is because he researched the character and insisted to Clive that they keep some of Harry's talismanic tattoos. So in his lovely topless scene with Famke Janssen, that tattoo was Scott's idea based on the actual books. As I mentioned, Famke Janssen plays the femme fatale of the film, and we also got great performances by Kevin O'Connor. Kevin O'Connor's a chameleon. You might remember him from The Mummy, Van Helsing, Virtuosity. He almost never looks the same twice, but is always kind of a sleazeball. Oh, and he was in There Will Be Blood. I was actually considering and might eventually do the Kevin J. O'Connor Gets Killed by Horrible Monsters triple feature, of which this would, of course, be one. Barry Dale Sherman, who isn't in enough things, plays this really androgynously creepy bastard named Butterfield, who's always just kind of ready to pop out of nowhere and do something horrible in very, very, very tight, I want to say orange pants. And playing the big bad guy, Nix, is character actor extraordinaire Daniel Von Bargen from Seinfeld, Malcolm in the Middle fame, and he's in every other Jonathan Demme movie, and it's just wonderful. And as an aside, it's really, I think Lord of Illusions is the best anyone, or the closest anyone's ever gotten to really translating the vibe of a Clive Barker short story or novel into the film. Granted, Clive has a leg up adapting his own thing. He's going to have an inside to it. But if you look at Hellraiser and Nightbreed, he really didn't do... I think they're good movies, but they're not really his voice translated well because at those points in his career, he didn't have the filmmaking experience yet that he would have when he made Lord of Illusions, and everything really clicked together, and it's just a great story of the fun and the potential good you can do with the supernatural mixed with the crushing horror of what happens when those people abuse it with detectives. Finally, we got The Big Lebowski. I'm not going to talk too much about this because you really should know about it by now, but honest to God, This is a detective story. It's the Coen brothers simultaneously celebrating and mercilessly mocking film noir detective stories. I forget which Joel or Ethan actually cited Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye as a part of the inspiration for making The Big Lebowski. And we really, everything gets made fun of with the root premise of having your detective be a complete stoner moron, the dude, played by Jeff Bridges, to, cult fame. And watch it, and you'll see in between all of the gags and the f bombs and the pederasts, there really is every convention of a good detective story. We have secrets kept from our detective, plot twists, mob bosses, jerk police, femme fatales, and bowling. Uh, so, Long Goodbye, Lord of Illusions, Big Lebowski. These are detective movies that also offer, ridiculous genre fun, whether it be hippie existential crisis, horror movies, or just side-splitting hilarity. Go forth, watch them, and I will see you guys next week.